host, and this morning I actually, was thinking about the mindset and ancient wisdom, and one of the things that we have in the mastermind that will actually help traders, it is to share a mindset that maybe an alternative version of, you know, um, kind of a knowledge share. And so actually, I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna go through this document I created, and it called the three guardians. Um, talk about the mental space and being able to navigate and make a decision, but also group share inside the mastermind. And these the three guardians of making decisions and ancient wisdom. I was reading the story about Roman generals, and they talked about how before every battle they had one person, or they selected one person to go against the general and be a devil's advocate, um, or actually just say oppose the idea. So they will say, "Hey, what is your plan to go into battle?" And they would select one person to, at all times just um, go against the plan and bring up alternative scenarios. Back in the crypto days inside the mastermind, that was, we used to call it a consensus. We would have Nick and myself and Crypto Black, and we would say, hey, if we all agree, then we know it must be a good play. And if we didn't agree, then it was kind of like a red flag. And that is, an idea that we can bring to the trading, having a trading partner. Imagine you selected, a person to, review your trades, every trade that you took, and just be the devil's advocate. In relationships, that sometimes they get, testy, or a person, thinks someone is, testing the ego or just going against the grain. But we say that the truth should be able to stand on its own, and that is, encouraged in the mastermind, right? And also in the Roman Church, they called it the devil's advocate, right? When they made decisions based on, a pope or someone in high authority, they wanted the devil's advocate, someone that just, beat down on a decision. And then also another thing called the 10th man is, when everybody agrees on one, 1 out of 10 men, the ninth man was, or the 10th man was supposed to, think of the alternative. And then they had this thing called Memento Mori. When Roman generals would, come home and they have they had success and win a battle, they would throw a big parade or a big celebration. And they would, had this Roman general or a war general, they would celebrate them throughout the streets. But they would hire or they would put a slave to work and to ride right behind them. And while everyone was cheering and celebrating him, they wanted to keep him humble, and they would whisper in his ear that, "Hey, you're still human," right? And that was about surviving your own success. Not letting the people that celebrate you, um, let it get to your head. And so, if you take these three, um, ideas, right, and you add them to, um, the decision making, right? Each one of the ideas of having a devil's advocate, or um, you know, staying humble when you have success. It was all in an environment where bad decisions, cost lives or reputations, and even your soul. So in the Roman church, it was like, you don't want to lose your soul by making a decision and having no one challenge it. And so these are tools, defending against the weakness that every human has, into a high stakes room. So, imagine having a person that follows you in every decision you make. They were just a devil's advocate, give you a different idea of why it will feel or why it wasn't a good decision, right? In some environments, that is the ego, and they feel like, hey, I'm being challenged, and no one should challenge me. In the mastermind, that is survival. Imagine if you can have someone before you take every trade just says, hey, you know what, this trade sucks or it's not good, and here's the reasons why, right? Because at the end of the day, the market, it never attacks your strategy. It attacks the ego, the pride, the fear. It always attacks the operator, right? And so it is the operator who can survive being wrong, survive the crowd, survive being right, that normally is going to have more success, right? So if you ever thought about, that as a benefit, right? Every decision you make in life, if you had the devil advocate or someone sitting on the shoulder saying, hey, this is why it's going to fail, right? Instead of taking it personal, is a safeguard. And I think about that in trading, if you had a trading advocate, right, before any entry or any high conviction setup, it gave you all the alternatives or things you may have missed, right? The level of success would go up, right? The 10th man having a moment that you realize that everybody's thinking one way, and it becomes extreme consensus, which you start looking at the downside. All right, after big wins, after winning for a while, right? You have someone tell you that, hey, you can lose everything uh, the next trade. So immediately after a victory or winning trades, a hot streak, you have someone to balance you out, saying, "Hey, stick to the strip. You're not that great. You can lose everything in the next trade." All right. So the devil advocate protects you against going into a trade. The 10th man protects you at the point of maximum agreement when everything is going up, and a lot of times you get overconfident to the point where you throw in more, or it's just, you know what, it's still just a trade. Everybody's on one side. And then Memento Mori protects you after you win, right? The moment that most traders never guard. And this is one of the reasons we have traders that have a lot of success 1 or 2 months, and then the third month they blow it all, right? Or they break all their rules, right? And that's the moment everything quietly ends most careers, right? And so having all three of these, I guess, failure modes in play, right, gives you a complete operating system for the mind, active before, during, and after every decision. And I kind of wanted to share we've heard the devil's advocate, and sometimes it's just a person says, "Oh, I'm playing the devil's advocate," and the devil's advocate is designed to save capital, and the consensus survives the 10th man becomes real conviction, and the win that survives Memento Mori becomes durable. Right? Used together, they build a trader who is harder to fool, slower to gain arrogance, and far more likely to compound over decades instead of months. And this is not just in trading, right? This is being able to implement and have someone question the decisions and how you move. Um, right, it helps you in life, right? And the devil advocates was established, in 1587 during the Roman times from the Catholic Church, and it's designed to kill confirmation bias, and it's designed to happen before you take a trade, right? So it says conviction must bleed before it leads. It has to get poked up, um, you know, uh, poked around and damaged before you can take the trade. So it says no idea earns a place in the arsenal until it's been attacked by its own prosecutor. Right? Popularity is not evidence, only survival under deliberate fire is. So only when someone has poked a hole and tried to break through and says, hey, this is not, here's why I think it's bad, it has to be able to survive, critical analysis before. I don't know if you guys, how you think about that, but imagine that every question that you had, every decision that you made, and it was poked at, right? Instead of taking it as an ego and someone is like, constantly challenging you, you thought of it as a way to be under fire and must have conviction, right? Before it leads. Um, how much would your trading be? So when you have a trading partner or when you have a relationship, some people say, oh man, it gets tiring, someone always questioning, etc. Right. But in the reality, in the long range thing, it was one of the decisions that, one of the analyses is and I guess under fire that will make you a better leader and help you make better decisions. And so 1587, right, the devil advocate came in play. There was a Roman general before that did that on the battlefield, but the devil advocate came from a concept in the Catholic Church, and it was you know, everyone knew it as this darker, more accurate nickname, the vacatus diaboli or whatever. I can't even say it, but it comes out to the devil's advocate. All right, and whenever a popular candidate proposed sainthood, this person was legally appointed to argue against it. No matter how holy the candidate seemed, no matter how much the crowd wanted, right, their job was to attack the case. Right. And if we apply that to trading, right, the hunt for holes in evidence, right, expose the character flaws and trading flaws. I just wanted to, remind people that, in a mastermind, that is actually a benefit. If you can get someone to look at the trade or look at a report, look at your work, right, and actually, give you a real review or assessment of a trade or something you're working on. I seen it last night when I think Ivan had posted a report. And he was like, "Hey, can you guys take a look at it and tell me how you like it?" Right? It's actually a benefit for someone to go in and be like, this sucks, or you could add X, Y, Z. Right? It's okay to play the devil's advocate in an environment where it's welcome. Right? In the Roman Church, they elected a official to actually do that because a lot of people don't want to criticize or poke a hole into a theory. They take it personal. So they had to appoint someone so they could actually, some people call it being negative. Some people call it help. Other people may call it constructive criticism, right? And other people may just call it QA, right? Just quality assurance. So, um, the principle, even when the office in 1983 for the Roman Catholic Church abandoned, um, that the entire office, the principle was too valuable to lose. Playing the devil advocate is probably one of the powerful decision-making frameworks ever created, right? In a case that cannot survive its own prosecutor was never strong, it was only popular, right? And some trades, may look popular or may look like, hey, this is an obvious play, but we always need a devil advocate. And in trading, right, you also want to look at the trades that you take and poke holes in it, right? And sometimes, the bias doesn't allow you to play devil advocate. And so this is a major victory when you embrace it. All right. And so, right, for the modern trader, um, every trade say, man, can it pass through sainthood? Can it make it through, the devil's gates, right, of DCG? Is it able to pass? And I was I was on a trader podcast, and he asked me like, how can a trader, um, how can you help a trader stay disciplined? I was like, if you can have a trader just present every time they trade before they trade it and put it out in the open, it says, hey, accountability. If you just posted up every trade you took before you took it and told the mastermind to, review this trade and let me know your thoughts, right? That was one of the key consistencies of having a mastermind chat, right? Is not only to just share, your wins and put things on the wall, but to put things through the gauntlet of DCG, right? If you find a setup you like, you find a trade that is super good, if you shared it in public, right, and says, "Hey, I want you guys to be a devil's advocate. Tell me why this is not a good trade," or "Hey, I'm going to take this trade. You know, I'll play the devil's advocate, right, and to be able to stop if you hear, opposing views that are strong, right." And so they say the tourist falls in love with the setup on site, collect evidence that agrees. Sometime in bad relationships, right, a person is just looking to argue their evidence so they can be right, right? In trading, that doesn't work, right? In trading, that actually your bias gets you in trouble. You actually want, someone to stop your excitement, right? And you want to find out if you do really have true conviction, right? And so the operator, right, in trading, someone that wants to be successful and looks at it as a benefit, is going to appoint a prosecutor against the idea. Hey, I want to hire someone that's telling me, every case against why not to take the trade. When I ask someone that, hey, do you like this trade or what do you guys think? Right? That is actually inviting criticism and inviting someone to help me save money. Right? Because that treats survival under fire as proof. If you're gonna withstand, 100 eyeballs looking at it and telling me that, hey, this still it looks like a good trade and it feels good. I don't see anything negative. Right? That's actually validation. Right? And why wouldn't you want invalidation before the entry? Why wouldn't you want someone to tell you that, hey, this is a bad idea? Right? Because at the end of the day, you say you want to be profitable, right? And you got free QA, you got a free quality check, you got a free devil's advocate, right? And this is not negative thinking, right? It's anti-fragile conviction. You don't want to have a soft conviction where it breaks every time somebody looks at the idea, right? So an idea that dies under the devil's advocate saves you money. That's a win, not a loss, right? And so if someone says that, hey, I'm gonna make a left and I'm gonna go in this room, and you got 10 people saying, hey, bro, don't go in that room, right? Don't go in that room, Diddy behind there, right? That actually saves you and you survive, right? And you come out the other side dramatically stronger, right? And if no one doesn't, right, that's actually a disadvantage, right? That is not, the Roman generals that were celebrated had a person to question, right? Every decision they make. In the Roman church, they had the devil advocate, right? And so what would have to be true for this to be a trap? And if it's already true, right, then it protects my account if I'm aware of it. So, um, that is uh, a good thing to have, right? If you remove the ego and you have someone can, start arguments with you, right? And you actually look at it as a benefit. That, hey, it must be conviction before it leads. Before I take a trade or before I make a decision, right? If the normal person would think that everybody against them, right? But a successful person that wants to make the best decision, looks at it as, you know, man, their evidence was weak and it's going to help me survive. So only survival under deliberate structured fire creates conviction worthy of capital, right? Only if your idea can stand up, in front of criticism and fire is it a good decision, right? And so yeah, Ivan here posted something about New, right? Nucor, which is a steel company, and it made a case for why it was good, right? And I was reading it, I was like, man, nobody else looked at the trade, or maybe nobody said it or gave them feedback, but he just created a new report, and it looked great. And then I looked in and says, well, what is, you know, um, I'm going to watch it tomorrow and see all the information that was posted and give them additional feedback, right? Not just looking to give them good feedback, but also looking to give any devil's advocate feedback. And if I can enforce that on myself, I can enforce it on others, right? The goal is to help them become the best they can. And you can't help a person become the best if there's no criticism, right? Or if there's no disagreement. So that is another mindset that we can actually, run, right? And say, hey, you know what? I need to appoint a prosecutor on everything I do, right? You can create an AI agent to say, hey, be ruthless with evidence based on things I ask you. So that is a real big um, mindset revelation, right? If you don't feel comfortable talking out loud and saying, hey, I need a devil's advocate, why not create an AI agent that you can say, help me make better decisions and be ruthless and be my devil advocate uh, based on evidence and tell me why something is not going to work out or tell me why a trade is not going to work out. Right? That is a deliver three to five strongest reasons it fails. Right? And then and in the best case why this trade becomes a loss, best case why it becomes a win. So in a lot of my reports, you'll see that I'll actually ask, the one point that's overlooked that nobody talking about. I always ask AI to give me the one point that nobody's talking about. Right. So when we have a bullish bias or a bearish bias, I still want to hear the one point that nobody's talking about because I'm actually looking for things that I may miss. Right. I actually want the mastermind to hold me accountable because it's going to help me become profitable. Right. And so, should I refine, downgrade, or abandon my ideas? If it survives clean, size up with earned conviction. If it limps, cut its size. If it dies, walk away and feel nothing but gratitude. So run on any setup you rate, right? That's going to be my next thing is take this document. I'm actually going to share it with you guys, but create a AI or something to just help me make better decisions, right? In life, I can take these for trading. I also can write these for life decisions, right? And say, man, how great would it be to have someone play the devil advocate that I don't have to take personally, right? That I don't have to think that they're just criticizing me to criticize me or they're just hating on me, right? Some people that give you feedback and criticism isn't hating on you, right? They may try, they may be really genuinely trying to help you. So pre-trade monitoring every 8 to 10 setup before the gate score is finalized, right? I'm gonna run a new protocol, right? State the bullish thesis in 3 to 5 sentences, or I might just add this to one of my prompts, right? Deliver the 3 to 5 strongest reasons it failed, right? In trading, refine, downgrade, or bend it. Which one should I apply to this scenario, right? And then you can actually just say, you know what? I'm gonna take this entire document because we talked about the gate in trading, right? Having a gate. What if I had these three guardians act as, um, my three guardians in making big decisions, right? And it tells me, it applies these different rules and personalities, right, to the decisions I'm making and give me feedback, right? That would actually become beneficial. So before you position, right, you want to run the setup through a saved advocate, an AI prompt, or appear before you size. Make attacking an idea a required step, not an optional one, right? Write the thesis in 3 to 5 sentences, right? And this is where this become into a repeatable trading edge, right? In a repeatable mindset is that, yeah, I actually do want, uh, to bleed and find, holes before I make a decision, right? If they survive the criticism or they survive the gate, right? If it limps, I'm gonna half size it. If it gets death, I'm gonna skip it. If it survives, I can go in full size, right? And you appoint a prosecutor, right? And it actually runs through the last 24 hours being your devil advocate, right? And this is you can install it all this week, right? So let me share this document real quick and put it in the chat, right? Uh, so put it over here, right? My little mindset folder, right? And so I've seen I've seen it's hard to get mastermind members to, get feedback publicly because we've been tricked into thinking that, man, you can't say anything negative. People are sensitive. They're gonna take it personal, right? But if you can actually kill bad decisions, that's actually healthy, right? That actually means that you have filters, you have a review, right? And the 10th man rule is from a Israeli military intelligence, right? They saying that the origin is Yom Kippur War, and it kills groupthink, and it helps timing at its peak agreement, right? Extreme consensus, like they say, when everybody is super bullish, right? That is not confirmation anymore, right? And it's saying that you can't reward alignment. If everybody is saying, yeah, man, this is going to work, no doubt, like, just go all in, right? Then this is when we weaponize discipline, right? And see what is the crowd missing, right? If you have no sellers in the market and everything is bullish, right? It sometimes give you a false sense of a warning, right? And so this is a modern rule. It was written in blood, right? In 1973, right? They were caught off guard, Israel, at the start of Yom Kippur War, right? The intelligence had been there, the warning signs were visible, but everyone in the room was looking at the same data, arriving at the same kind of conclusion. The enemy would not attack, right? It wasn't a Pearl Harbor. They were under, war, and they just thinking that, all right, now they're not going to attack it here. And, um, nobody played the enemy. No one builds the opposing case, right? The blind spot goes unchallenged. It becomes a disaster, right? So when everybody is saying go all in, right, having a 10th man that says, hey, you know what, there's an opposing view, right? And so we're all looking at the same reports, right? If we were only looking at one report and there's not a different report, or there's not a different person that has a idea, right? That we need 10 people on every call, right? We need someone that, hey, disagree, right? That is, we don't want everybody to be on the same team, right? All the time. We want someone to help us catch the fatal blind spots, right? And it removes ego and hesitation from dissent, right? Disagreement is simply their job, right? And that's what makes it work. Is when you have someone that constantly disagrees, right? It be time where Mike will come up on call and question like, "Hey, well, why are you doing this or why are you doing that?" And that's actually welcome. So I just shared this document. You can go through the rest. We actually had a couple of more, but putting this into AI and creating an agent based off this and saying, "Hey, be the devil advocate," or "Hey, when my trading is going well, tell me what I'm missing." Right? That is actually, we call that the slave in the chariot. Right? Slave was appointed to be directly behind the general in his chariot, reminding him that he's human. Right? It's his only task was to near the most powerful man in Rome and say, "Remember, you will die." Right? You're not a god. Right? And so in trading, there's no trading gods. Right? We are all human, and we are prone to make a human mistake at some time. Right? So on that note, I want to give you guys your morning back. Right? We had a big sale overnight, dropped to 74.80, which was a key level. The market is Wednesday. We're expecting to drop, and I'm still expecting the market to be bullish as long as it's above 74.8. Well, of course, we had to sell overnight. All right. On that note, hey, I hope this has been helpful, beneficial, um, and let's not take criticism as a personal insult in life, but also let's apply it into our trading. Create an AI agent that criticizes and help you make better decisions by not by being your devil advocate. All right. On that note, peace out, guys.